Welcome back to the Elevate Your Running podcast. This is Coach Sarah, your host for today. And I'm really excited about this episode because today I'm going to talk about all the things that I would do and buy if I started running today. Now, things have changed quite dramatically since when I first started running many years ago. Cut to, it was about 2005, and I'm really dating myself at this point. The Apple iPod Nano came out. The Apple iPod Nano came out, and my sister and I got in line to buy our iPod Nano. We were so excited about this. The original iPod had been out for a few years, and this was a smaller iPod. And of course, this was kind of in the boom of like Nike had a really great running app, and it was paired with Apple. Apple was kind of at, its prime, I would say. And it came with this awesome running strap. So I was rocking, shocking, a pink running band with this white AirPod or iPod Nano on my arm when I first started getting into running in 2005. Thinking about that and thinking about that summer and all the cool things that I got to do when I kind of fell in love with running that summer just brings me so much joy. And this episode, I hope does the same for you as I kind of go through some things that I would do differently, some things that I would definitely invest in, and some things that I would do differently if I was starting out in 2025, which I guess is about 20 years later, which is really wild. So just know that even if you are someone who has been running for a while, when I started making this list and thinking about things that I would do differently, thinking back to that summer in 2005, I would definitely continue to listen as maybe an intermediate, advanced, experienced runner, because there are things on this list that I still don't do that I should be doing. So I'll address those. And also, I really appreciate all the messages, all the emails, all of the Instagram messages about my injury and working through it. And, it's really the first time looking back on my running and, when the last time I was like not running consistently because of an injury and kind of just dealing with, weekly PT appointments and massage appointments, and really taking every day by day because I don't know what's going to happen and if I will be running Chicago, which I'm 100% at peace at. I think it's probably been about 10 years. And that's a really long time to not go through an injury and to be healthy and to now be on the other side of it's a really interesting place to be that I'll share more at the end of the episode. So I want to get into, we're going to talk about how to structure your run. We're going to talk about gear. I want to talk about apps and data and different things that we can use now that we definitely didn't have access to 20 years ago. Maybe something in the era of 20 years ago. We're going to talk about recovery tools and then also the mindset. So I think this is going to be really great. So let's jump right into it. So I want to first talk about that dedicated warm up and cool down because this is something I still don't do. And this is such a buzzkill because currently with my situation with my plantar fasciitis and just having an angry foot every now and again is when I was getting back into running a few weeks ago, I was only able to run 3, maybe 4 miles, about 30 minutes at a time was basically what the PT recommended. So that came anywhere between 3 and 4 miles. My warm-up routine was longer than the actual run. Now, this is not normal. This is not something that I'm saying, okay, you're going out for your 45-minute run. Make sure that your warm-up's an hour. No, this is just for injury right now and trying to warm up the foot, warm up the calf, warm up the body before I head out for a run. And it really is helping, which is really great. It's very motivating when you can see that tangible difference and you really feel it. And it's something that is helping. that dedicated warm up and cool down section is going to be huge because habits are created in our running. So the earlier and the sooner that you can implement this into your running. So if you are a new runner, if you are going out to, maybe you're training for your first marathon, your first half marathon, we are in a running boom right now. Last week, Coach Marilee and I talked about that, and it's so exciting to see so many people dedicated to the sport. So if you are kind of in that new era of running and training, having that dedicated warm up and cool down is going to be huge. So what is it? So the warm up can be leg swings, hip openers. It can be taking that resistance band and doing glute bridges and clamshells and fire hydrants and activating your glutes, activating your calves, and really stretching out. Like in my case, I'm stretching out like my feet and my ankles and doing a lot of ankle mobility before I head out for my runs right now. And that has helped quite a bit. So I would start out small. A few minutes is really all you need. For all the runners that I coach in person on Tuesday and Wednesdays in Boulder and Denver, they're always doing leg swings. They're always doing hip openers. You can do walking lunges, sometimes even quick dynamic stretches, like a quick quad stretch, holding the quad stretch for 1 to 2 seconds each side. 10 reps, you're good to go. You're going to not only stay healthy in the process of training and running, but you're also going to feel better in those first few miles of running. I know I said this on a podcast. It might have been with Dr. Dwayne Scotty, where, I don't warm up. And so usually my first few miles in most runs when I'm training heavy or when I'm in a normal training cycle is, I'm slow. It doesn't feel good. I'm kind of clunky. I mean, at one point I made a joke with a girl I was running with this spring. I was like, am I limping? Like, I just feel, this was after a workout and we were going into a long run. I'm like, Jenna, I think I'm limping. Like, I was just so tight and I didn't feel good. And I eventually warmed up and we had a good laugh about it. But you want to feel good. You want to feel, like you are warmed up when you start that first mile. Now, obviously, training fatigue is normal, especially when you're in a training block and you're running a lot of miles and you're doing all the things and you're asking your body to do things that it's never really been asked to do before. That's super normal. But it's kind of knowing the difference. So warm up is huge. And if you're a parent and you're like, it's a struggle to even just get out of bed, just try and do a few movements while you're getting ready. Whether that's like when you're brushing your teeth, you're putting your running clothes on, maybe you're eating that banana or drinking a few cups or a few sips of coffee. I guess in my case, it is a few cups. Not when I was waking up for 5 a.m. runs. It was a few sips, but doing it while you're multitasking can really help too. Now, that cool down section is equally as important. So static stretches, super great, especially if you're driving to a location. I'm really, really lucky with where I live and the access that I have to running trails where, unless I'm specifically making plans with people, I don't have to get in my car to run. I can run from my home and I have a variety of different run terrains. I can literally run to the mountains and do trail running if I want to. I literally have flat, soft surface. I have flat road, and flat in Boulder is Boulder Flat, which is like, slight up to slight down. There's always an incline or something. I have access to hills on the road. I have access to so many great trails. I'm so lucky and grateful for exactly where I live in town. It's so nice that I have access to that. So I'm not necessarily jumping in my car every single day to run, but you might be, or especially for that workout, if you're at the track or if you need to, drive somewhere for a long run, the cool down is going to be equally important. So static stretches are going to be great. Just taking a few minutes to do that is going to be huge. I have to give kudos to my Wednesday night team in Boulder because last Wednesday night, we had a series of workouts and we had people like running tune-up races or tune-up workouts for their races. We had people doing workouts. They were doing a cut down workout, and everyone was kind of finishing at slightly different times because I think I had like 4 or 5 different groups running at the same time. And everyone just kind of stayed around after their cool down. They stayed to stretch. They were on the ground stretching, doing hip strengthening work. So everyone could come together at the end and wish the team members who were racing good luck and just kind of stay together as a team. So we were on the track until probably after 8 o'clock. And it was so much fun. And I just love that because they're not only being great team members in that process, but they're also stretching and feeling good and kind of helping themselves in that process. So I really, really love the dedicated warm up and cool down section. Now let's segue into mobility. Now, this was one I debated adding in because I don't want to add in too many things that I would do or buy when I first start running, because running itself is overwhelming. And I think knowing what to do, what not to do, the education around it, there's just so much to know and learn. So I feel like mobility and strength is kind of second tier, but you might be at a point where you're like, hey, this is actually something I really want to do. So grab those resistance bands, do some body weight movements. Something is better than nothing, which I think everyone has heard me say that by now. And just making sure that you are getting in maybe some mobility throughout the week. That could be 5 or 10 minutes with your resistance bands. That's going to be huge. And also making sure that you, if you have the time and desire, to start strength training. And that could be body weights. That could literally be, body weight squats, lunges, calf raises, planks, overhead presses. Super basic is really what it can be. And then you can progress into that as you get into your running, but it will take time and patience. But I think it's really important that you are incorporating the warm up, the cool down, maybe some type of mobility. Let's get into gear, because gear is super fun. I think we all want to know about the gear. I think one of the best things that you can do is invest in a watch. So I was a runner who started running in 2005. And what did I use to track my runs? I don't even know. Maybe my phone? I think I just got the iPhone. I don't even remember. Maybe it was in the Nike app. I think it was in the Nike app. That's where I logged all my runs. When I eventually transitioned to an iWatch, which I absolutely loved. And I think about every single day, I question if I should get one again and drop the Garmin when I'm not running, just to have something fun and something less sporty to rock during the day. But when I got into training a little bit more formally, and Nell and I partnered together in 2009 to run my first marathon, I bought a Garmin. And I was really excited about the Garmin because I think I bought a really great version of the Garmin. It's more of a beginner level watch, which I think is very appropriate. And it is a watch that I used, that exact same watch, from 2019 all the way up until last December, when I was gifted a new Garmin. And it wasn't even really something I was focused on because I really loved that watch. I think, sometimes there's a lot of like nostalgic memories that come with that first watch and all the races that I've run with that watch and all the workouts. And even though I had to charge it every day, like, it still was a great watch. So I think going basic is great. So I had the 245 Music. I think for a period of time after the pandemic, that was one of the most sought after like questions or info on my Instagram, was like, what Garmin watch do you have? Like, people wanted to know. And it was, I think at the time, around $300. I had the music version, which was awesome because you could create playlists in Spotify and then download them to the watch, and you could directly link your AirPods or your earpieces to the watch, and you didn't have to bring your phone, which I loved. I loved that. And I could just run and be free with my music. But like, there's just something about having my phone with me at all times that creates a lot of anxiety for me. And it always has. So I really like not having my phone with me. So this gave me the option to do that. And it gave me all the data that I needed. I had my heart rate, which, at the time I was using my wrist heart rate. So that is a totally different thing. But I got my mile splits, you could program your workouts, and it, obviously tracked your mileage. You had different screens, so you could track like 1 mile at a time, which is something I still use for all of my runs. I never look at total time. I always look at the lap screen for the mile. And that really helps, especially those long runs, move quite a bit faster, rather seeing 3 total miles on the watch, knowing you're running 16 for the day. So I love the 245 music. I think it has all the bells and whistles that every runner needs, and it doesn't break the bank. And in my case, my watch lasted 5 years. And although I was at the very end charging it every day, um, yet I also run a lot. So I was also using it for about 75 up to 2 hours a day, maybe even longer, depending on what I was doing and how much strength I was doing, and if I was capturing a hike or logging a hike or something like that. So I love that watch. Now, I think the more updated version, which is the watch I now have, is the Garmin 255. And this is a very similar watch. And again, it's a more basic watch, but I think it has everything that you need without getting too advanced, without getting too overcomplicated. I think the most important thing is that you like what you have. I think being able to structure and program workouts is huge because you are able to just click the workout and the watch is kind of guiding you in terms of how long you're running, how long you're recovering, all those good things. But you have to be comfortable with the watch. So if you're like, Coach Sarah, I really don't want a Garmin or a Coros, congratulations. Like you probably have an Apple Watch. I'm secretly jealous. I wish the Apple Watch had a little bit better functionality and features for someone who is training pretty competitively and needing to know some certain splits at certain times and all that good things. Maybe someday that'll happen, or maybe it's already here and I just don't know it. Educate me, people. Educate me. So the Garmin watch is great. Second up, quality trainers. This is going to be huge. So when I first started running, I had one pair of Nike Pegasus shoes that I wore. And although that was a great quality trainer, and it's actually still a shoe I still use, it's still a shoe that I love. I think anytime you're looking at shoes, you have to have quality shoes, but you also need to have the shoes that work for you. And Pegasus have always worked for me. Always loved that shoe. And it's a shoe that I think is in its like first iteration. They have different varieties or different brands of that particular model. So when I was training for my first marathon, I got the Pegasus Turbo shoe for my speed days, which was super fun. It was just a little bit of a lighter shoe and I loved that shoe. It was so fun. And making sure you have like the shoe that really helps you feel confident in runs, but also fits your feet and body well is going to be huge too. Now, I also love the Adidas Adizero shoe. This is also a great shoe to add into the rotation because it's a little bit lighter of a shoe than the Pegasus. And it's a great shoe if you're running some fartleks, if you're running some strides, if you end up running a workout or a long run. It does have a little bit of a pickup to it, so you'll feel a little bit lighter, maybe a little bit smoother in that shoe. So I really like that shoe. But I think the most important thing outside of finding something that works for you is rotating your shoes. And that is something I didn't do. And I didn't realize that like the foam in the shoe needs about 24 hours to kind of put itself back together and kind of come back to its natural state after being broken down if you take it out for a run. So rotating through shoes, I think, is super important. It's still something, I started doing this years ago and it's still something that I do today, and really leaning into the shoes that maybe aren't necessarily the most popular, but the ones that are going to help you run the best and feel the best and stay healthy and all the good things, I think is really, really important. I know a lot of people love Brooks, and Brooks is a great brand, high quality shoe. I think a lot of people love Adrenalins, and I was there. I wore Adrenalins for so long, and I didn't realize how heavy of a shoe that was until I transitioned into other shoes. Like the Adidas Adizero was a shoe that I incorporated into my shoe rotation in 2019 and then heavily in 21 and 22, and just noticing the difference between those shoes. So knowing like, yes, high quality matters, rotating is a great thing, and then also just be intentional with those shoes. And if you know you want a heavier shoe or a more stable shoe because maybe you are feeling a little bit of a niggle or you want more protection, great. And if you are maybe thinking, oh gosh, I do have some strides in the second half of my run, or I am running a short fartlek, maybe I want a lighter energy return shoe, I'm going to go with that Adizero or the Nike Pegasus Turbos, which I don't think they make anymore. I think they brought them back for like a season last year. I didn't get them. I should have, but something like that. And just being intentional is such a great place to be. Let's switch gears into, even though we're still in gear, in the gear column, technical clothing. Okay, how many of us ran in cotton when we started running? I know I did. So I know I said I started running in 2005, which is true, but very few people know this. I also ran, I guess, a little bit. I ran 2 seasons of track in high school, which I've been very open about. And like, I ran 100, 200 meters and I did it really to get out of gym class in high school, which is like so silly looking back on it. But I really didn't want to go to gym class for 4 years and like have to deal with like getting sweaty and showering and just like all the things. I don't know, call me a girl. But so I ended up running track for 2 seasons and I dabbled in cross country. And I don't think I've shared that on the podcast. I dabbled in cross country, like literally I think I made it 10 days, 13 days before I was like, nope, I'm not doing this. I am out. And all I can remember is starting cross country in August in Michigan. I did not run between the end of track season and the beginning of cross country season. I lived in Michigan at the time, which is like warm, humid, like gross, heavy humidity, high dew point type conditions. And practice was in the afternoon at like 3 o'clock. And I remember suffering through not even 2 full weeks of cross country. And I'm pretty sure I was wearing cotton t-shirts and just like soaking through, so miserable. And don't let that be you. I think in hindsight, looking back, I mean, we're all on our journey and everything happens for a reason. But looking back on that, I'm like, wow, I wonder if my parents would have like made me stick with it, what would have happened in my running journey if I had stuck with cross country and all the things. But here we are. Now I'm a master's runner searching for, training and running some races and all the good stuff there. So I think making sure that you have nice quality clothes, dry wicking. Last week, Mary Lee on the podcast shared an incredible tip at the end of the podcast, which was about if you don't want to spend the money or don't have the money on the expensive dry wicking running clothes, going to kind of like a thrift store or I think in Denver, she went to Yogi Exchange. Like it's kind of like a secondhand clothing store where you can either donate your clothes to them or maybe they buy them, or going on Poshmark, something like that, and getting clothes for a fraction of what they cost in the store. I think it's a great idea, especially if you're in different seasons of body type. Like Marilee's coming back from having her second baby and she doesn't want to invest in Tracksmith at full price right now, right? But she is finding some really good stuff on Poshmark and then, of course, in stores as well. So that's a great idea. And in tandem, running socks. Running socks are good. Running socks make or break it. I, again, was wearing cotton socks when I was in high school, and I very well could have been wearing cotton socks when I was running in 2005. All I can remember is that iPod Nano and that like pink strap on my arms. Um, who knows what kind of socks I was wearing, but socks really do matter and they can be quite expensive. But if you can invest in some good quality socks, it will help your feet breathe easier in the summer, prevent blisters, which is huge because if anyone's had a foot blister, like yikes, not good. And also in the winter, Smartwool has a great series of warm merino wool socks that really help keep your feet warm in the winter. So I really like those socks. I'm a big Features girl now. Love the Features brand. You can find them in local running stores. I'm sure you can find them online, but find some good running socks that you like, whether they're ankle like I rock because I'm a geriatric millennial, or, if you want like the taller socks that all the cool kids are wearing now. And a lot of running clothing brands also offer running socks. Like I'm thinking of Bandit. They definitely have some good socks, Lululemon. So get out there and invest in some good running socks. Let's talk recovery tools. I think recovery tools are huge. It's something I never really had, but I think it's really important that when you're starting out with running, you're going to be sore, you're going to be fatigued, your body's going to be like, WTF, what are you doing to me? And you'll want to give it care. And even if you're doing your warm up and your cool down, you're still going to want to have a few recovery tools. So I think having a foam roller is awesome, and you can foam roll your entire body and really hit and maybe trigger point some of the tighter spots. And that's going to help prevent injury or help prevent niggles from forming, or having like a tight posterior chain that's taking months to unravel. So having a foam roller is, you can just foam roll for a few minutes at night before you go to bed. You can do it while you're watching TV or a YouTube video, listening to music, whatever, however you want to do it. I think that's great. And then of course, a tennis ball or a cross ball can also help more in those trigger point areas. I like them specifically for my hips and my glutes, like my glute med, and just rolling the ball across the wall. And then when I hit a tight spot, just kind of lean into it a little bit. It feels so good. And there's a lot of YouTube videos out there right now too that you can follow along. So you can follow along with a post-run stretching video or a foam rolling video, or how to use a lacrosse ball to massage out your hip without hurting yourself. So a lot of resources, a lot of tools out there that I definitely didn't have 20 years ago. Or maybe you're listening to this podcast and you're like, oh, that was me too, right? Things are just totally different now. And we have so much at our fingertips that it really can help us create a much stronger, faster type of runner if that's what we're looking for. Next up is tracking your progress. Now, I mentioned this earlier in the episode. I can't quite remember how I tracked my runs. I think it was through Nike. And maybe it wasn't through my phone. Maybe the iPod Nano had like the Nike app in the device, so I could use it in tandem. I can't actually remember. I'm going to have to ask my sister, and I'll clarify on a future podcast episode. But track your progress. Right now in 2025, Strava is like the place to do that. Coach Marilee and I were talking about this last week, but I think it's really important that tracking your progress is important. I think it's important for every runner to be able to give and provide feedback. And hopefully that's positive feedback of, oh, wow, I felt so much stronger on this run than I did 2 months ago. Or, oh, wow, I'm running these splits faster, but I feel the same than 3 months ago. So having something to track, a tool to track that, is huge. And put it on private. Like, we don't have to have a public Strava account. I think it's really cool when people are private and stay private and they're still on there giving kudos, but they're not sharing with the world what they're doing, especially if that impacts your mental health. So I think being able to track your progress is key, because it is going to build a lot of confidence. It is going to build, I think, really good habits along the way, especially if you are taking time to reflect. And maybe it's the route, maybe it's the pace, maybe it's the distance, maybe it's saying, my gosh, this is the first time I ran 14 miles since last year, or this is the first time I'm running 14 miles ever, or hey, this is the first time I'm running 6 miles, like whatever it is. Yes, I got to run with my friend Marilee, who was on the podcast last week, in Wash Park yesterday. And we finished the run and we like high-fived each other with our water bottles because we ran 8 miles. It was like her longest run postpartum. And I don't even know where that 8 miles lands in her pregnancy journey. And then before she got pregnant, she has 2 boys who are very close in age, and I believe they call them Irish twins. And for me, I was like, well, I haven't run 8 miles, which was my daily run. I haven't run 8 miles since July 1st. So this is a win. So we cheers with our running water bottles and we had a good laugh about it. But I think it's really important whether, you're with friends and you're tracking your progress that way, like Marilee and I did yesterday, or, you're tracking your progress through something like Strava. I think it's highly beneficial. I've used this example before on the podcast, but Clayton Young specifically talks about Strava and how he uses it to build himself up going into workouts. So I'm assuming he keeps his Strava private. I know Connor doesn't, but he looks back when he has the bread and butter workouts that you get over multiple times over the year. And he looked at the last K workout that he had, which I think was in now, this video was airing during his Boston build. So I believe he was reflecting on his New York City build last fall. And he said, okay, self, this is what I ran the Ks in. I'm going to try and do that maybe a little bit better if I'm feeling good. But he had kind of an idea of where he was at based on his Strava. And I also think it's kind of funny that he uses Strava and he doesn't have another platform that he uses, but that's here nor there. He said in the video that he went through this K workout and they kind of went through his splits, and he ran some of his Ks 2-3 seconds faster, which one with Ks is huge, and two, as a pro runner, you're running fast already. So to take, what would that be, 5 or 6 seconds, maybe 5 seconds off the mile, that's huge. So it's really fun to be able to track your progress. I think whether you're a new runner or an experienced runner, having those workouts, those benchmark workouts, huge. Definitely highly recommend that. Looking back, seeing your growth is very motivating. And also, if you notice that maybe you're not trending in the right direction, that is also running, my friends. And running is not linear. And there are going to be those days where it's like, wow, I can't even run anything close to maybe my personal best in these Ks. That's also going to happen, especially in the summer, especially if you're stressed, especially if you're sick, whatever. It's definitely going to impact you and how you feel. The next segue I want to take is more on the mindset and more about knowing yourself as a runner and your mindset. So, the next thing I want to talk about is know what you like and what you don't like. And I think this is really important because as a coach, I ask my athletes when I'm onboarding them, like, what do you believe are your strengths and what do you believe are your weaknesses? And I think that that's really telling. I remember Nell asked me that when she onboarded me in 2019. And then she again asked it, that same question, when I came back to her 3 years ago, which was in 2022. And I think it's really telling for an athlete when they don't know. They don't know what they're good at. They don't know what they're not good at. It does lend itself well to staying open, to be curious about every workout and not really knowing what you're not good at, and maybe keeping the anxiety levels down. But I think it's really important, not just as a runner, but obviously as a human, to know what you like and what you don't like and being true to that. So that is going to come in a variety of ways. It's going to be experimenting with routes, experimenting with paces, experimenting with races and different types of races and maybe race distances, experimenting with how many miles you're running in a week, how many rest days you have. Now, this is all in good form, as well as like making sure you're not like overdoing it and getting injured. This is going to take time. It's going to take a lot of time to figure this out. You're not just going to jump into a 20-mile run and be like, oh, I don't want to train for a marathon. That's not what I'm talking about. But over the course of years, you're going to develop the understanding of what you like and what you don't like. And I think that's really important for runners, because if you are working with someone and you know what you don't like I don't like running hills on the road or trying to run pace on the road, on a hilly road. I don't like that, because I really like having a more apples to apples comparison to whatever race I'm running. And I'm not running a hilly race. Um, so I really like that. But my coach will push me to do that. And that's part of the process. And you'll eventually learn that it's not as bad as you think it is. You might get a little bit better at it. You might learn to enjoy it, all those good things. So that's going to be really important to remember. But I think it's really cool, on the athlete side, of just understanding who you are. Obviously, that's true in life too. Like, who are you? What are your values? Who do you want to spend your time with? I think that's a huge piece to life. And also running, like, what do you like? What do you don't like? And maybe don't do the things that don't necessarily fill your cup, or maybe do less of them. Maybe dabble in it so that you um, have the exposure of getting uncomfortable, which is really important in running. But it's not overexposure that might drain you, might defeat you. You might be less motivated to get out the door. You might be less motivated to train or to run because of it. I think that's really important. So it's a fine balance between the two. And lastly, I'll say be curious. I think when we first start out running, I think this is actually something that we really hold well as new runners, as novice runners, because we don't know what we don't know. Like everything is great because usually at the very beginning, you're running and running feels good and you're not pushing yourself that you would necessarily would if you were training, or maybe the further along you kind of get into running. But I think it's really important to stay curious. If you're running workouts, if you're running long runs, if you're running new routes, like I was just talking about, like, oh, maybe running like a hillier route is a good experimentation of staying curious. You might actually learn that you like it or that you thrive or that you ran really well. So I don't love hillier routes, but this spring I got to run in North Boulder on the North Boulder roads, which for me at this point in my running career, I trained heavily on those roads for a Boston build. And every single long run during that Boston build 2 years ago was like awful. It was cold. It was like 40-mile-per-hour winds. It was just not good every single weekend. Every single weekend. And I think I have some traumatic stress issues with that area of town because I don't like running out there. This spring, some of the girls that I was running with, they were like, "Oh, it'd be really cool if we could just like get out there and do this run." And I was like, "Okay, like I'll do it." I haven't been out there in like at least a year. I should give it another go. And it ended up being one of the best long runs that I've had in such a long time. So I think it's a great example to stay open, to stay curious. You never really know what you're going to get. You might prove yourself wrong in this case. I was like, oh, wow, I ran these hills so much stronger, so much faster than I ever have. I ran the downs even stronger. The whole run was great. I think sometimes we can just get in our heads as runners, right? And as humans, but get into our heads. And I think it's really important that sometimes we say, okay, self, I see you, I hear you, and I'm still going to do this, and we're going to see what happens. And then, hey, if we prove ourselves right, we're like, nope, that was terrible, but I don't want to do that again. Okay, maybe you can like shelf it for a little bit, but you never know. You might prove yourself wrong, and it might be a place that you lean into. It could be something new that you like, and it could just be like your new like favorite thing, which could be really fun. So that's what I have in terms of what I would do and what I would buy if I was first starting out running again. I hope you loved this episode. I will transition into a very quick running update. I know I have a lot of runners listening to this who are also running Chicago, whether I'm coaching them or not. And I think there's a lot of concern about whether I'm running Chicago. Not from me, but I think from a lot of other people. And I think right now, I'm recording this on July 28th. So things could be very, very different by the time this episode airs in August. But I'm able to run. Let me back up. I started with some plantar pain at the very beginning of June. It was actually kind of brewing. I remember the pain, a very slight discomfort in my heel, running my cool down after running Boulder Boulder. And I think, looking back on my June, I think I was very dysregulated in a lot of different ways. And I didn't take time off. I was supposed to take time off and I didn't take a rest day on Tuesday. I ended up going on a trail run on Wednesday morning, which was an absolute disaster. I had like zero control over my legs. And that was like one of the scariest feelings that I've ever experienced. It's like, I don't know if you're afraid of heights, or I'm afraid of like heights and falling. It was kind of like the same experience of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fall. And it was just kind of this whole domino effect of running too much, not listening to my body, not slowing down, even though a lot of things in June were trying to slow me down. I am stubborn and I didn't want to slow down. So, cut to when was it? July 1st, I ran a workout and my heel had been hurting. And I really just thought, this is going to go away. Like, this is not, I don't have time to see anyone. I don't have time to deal with this. It's just going to go away. And I was running a 200 workout to tune up for a mile race later that week. And I was running super strong for the first 3 reps. I felt incredible. Caveat, I was deniably in the best shape of my life going into this workout. I have felt that way in like after racing Boulder Boulder and June, like I just felt like my fitness was like sky high. And I went into this workout, I was running super strong 200s. And after the third 200, I had to do like in between efforts, I was doing like a jog walk. So a little bit of a walk, jog, and then go back into the 200. And I was like kind of limping in the walk. And I was like, oh, my foot like really hurts. And I'm stubborn. So I finished the workout. I had a 3 mile tempo after the 200s that I didn't do, but I still ran the full 12 miles I was supposed to run that day. And I was in a lot of pain. And I think it took seeing some PTs, taking some days off. I was really worried that people were going to start to notice and ask me what was wrong. And I didn't know what was wrong. And I went to a race on that Friday for it was a mile race. And I honestly didn't want to go because I didn't want to see my teammates and I didn't want people asking me why I wasn't racing because I really didn't know. I was just like, my foot hurts. I don't know. Like, I've never dealt with plantar before. I've never really had an athlete. I think I've had one athlete with it. And I just didn't want to face it. I didn't want to deal with it. I just kind of wanted to like curl up into a ball and be like, this will go away. And I have been seeing a really great PT in Denver for the last few weeks, and she's been dry needling my calf. It's basically just my whole right posterior chain is tight. It's very, very tight. It's pulling up on the plantar. Cut to where we are today, July 28th. I'm able to run 2 days in a row and then taking that third day off. And I ran last week 27 miles, I think, which was the most miles I've run since the beginning of July when all this started, or when it got worse where I couldn't run. Prior to that, I was running high 60-mile weeks and feeling great and feeling fantastic. So that's where I am right now. Some days are better than other days. It is an ebb and flow. So it's really teaching me that I have to stay present with today. I have to stay present with where I'm at. The good news is that when I wake up in the morning, I don't have pain in my foot. And it's not sore after running. It's still kind of sore on that 0 to 2 out of 10 scale. And I told my coach when all this started, I said, I'm not training for a marathon with my foot hurting the way it's hurting. I'm just not. Like, that's just not my jam. I don't want this to be a 6, 9, 12 month or longer process. I will 1,000% defer my entry to Chicago and not train and just get this like totally tightened up because I just don't want to deal with it. It's like for anyone who's run through chronic pain, it's not fun and it eats at you during the run. It doesn't make running fun. It doesn't make the rest of your day feel good because you're just my foot was like very, very tender the first few weeks of July and like trying to figure out like what shoes do I wear? What shoes don't I wear? Like I have like recovery slides that I've just been wearing everywhere, which is like ridiculous, but also whatever. So that's where I'm at right now. I think it's a really great lesson of staying present with every single day because as a competitive high mileage runner who understands that my window of time is drastically closing to do anything greater in the marathon than a 3:08 is I've been planning races. I mean, I'm a planner by nature, but one of my teammates last summer was like, after I ran Indy, he's like, well, what's next? He's like, you're the only one on the team that has like their 18-month race schedule planned out, which is true. And I think I'm learning that this is a really great lesson in staying present with every single day. Because when I wake up and when I do all of my mobility and stretches to run, I still don't know how I'm going to feel. And I have a range of miles that day. I have to stay on flat, soft surface. So, literally, been running this loop by my house. I also have to stay by my house in case like something happens and I need to like get home and not be like on the foot. So I never really know what I get. And I definitely know like the first few runs that I went out for that were 3 or 4 miles, I was so anxious the whole run. I was just like, is my foot going to blow up or can I get through this 30 minutes like feeling like it can't go above a 3 out of 10 is kind of like what the PT has advised. So like, can I get through it? So we're slowly making progress. I think when this all started, I said I only need 10 weeks to train for Chicago. And by the time this episode airs, we'll be 9.5 weeks out. I still feel that way. 10 weeks, I think I could do. I've been training consistently with Nell for 3 years. I haven't had a break. And I think I could do it. I just don't know if I want to do it. And that's been something that I've been really trying to lean into of like, well, why don't I want to do it? Am I scared I'm going to get hurt again? I am kind of nervous about something else happening for sure. Outside of running, I'm not necessarily sleeping as well as I'd want to, and I'm also not fueling my body as well as I want to right now. So I am kind of concerned that pushing myself into a training cycle right now is setting myself up for something else to go wrong. So I'm hesitant with that, but I am going to take it day by day and just see how it goes. And, running easy 5-6 miles, maybe 4 or 5 days out of the week is where I'm at right now. So I have to meet myself where I'm at. And we'll see what next week brings and the week after, and like when I can start to incorporate workouts, how marathon pace feels. And, if my foot flares up from that, because higher intensity will do that. And also, I've noticed hills do that. So I'm trying to find a route that's flat for a long run is also going to be pretty challenging unless I want to drive to Denver. So there's a lot going on. But the good news is that I am making progress. The great news is that I am getting to run, because there was a week where I was told no running and I was told no walking, and I was basically like immobile. So it was not a great week for that. So I'm really glad that I can walk Kenzie and I can be out there getting some miles in and logging it. And someone once told me, like, whether you're healthy or injured, it's never going to stay that way. And it's so true. So I think what I'm going through right now is not only going to make me a better human. I think this whole like staying present in the day versus getting ahead of myself is going to be huge. It's going to translate to my running and my training and what I'm training for and how I kind of structure my year of running for sure. But I also think it's going to make me a better coach, because I'm going to have a bit more empathy and understanding of what that injured runner goes through, because that's always been a little bit of a disconnect. I remember, 10 years ago, I had quadricep tendonitis, which is tendonitis right above the kneecap, which is not good. And that took a very long time to recover from, but I was going to like Orange Theory classes. It's different when you're used to like a running routine, a training plan, having a coach, having a team, and training for a very particular race, and also kind of seeing, the time wind down on like how close you're getting to race day and really not sure if you're racing or not. What I will say for everyone listening who's wondering if I will be at Chicago, because that is the second question I'm getting, is, there's quite a few people from the Elevate team going to Chicago. So as of right now, I am still planning to go to Chicago. Maybe I run the 5K, maybe I don't race at all, and I'm there coaching, supporting, meeting virtual athletes that I haven't gotten the chance to meet yet. There's so many high quality runners on the team going, high quality meaning humans going, that I really want to see them and meet them and give them a hug and like lead a shakeout. And Marilee and will be there with her husband, Billy. Billy's racing it. I may still get Billy to his corral on time, which was the agreed upon thing that we talked about when we decided to like stay together in an Airbnb and like go to the corrals together. So no matter what, it's going to be a fun weekend. And I really appreciate all the emails, all the text messages, all the concerns, all the advice. Woo! I've gotten a lot of advice on how to treat this, and I appreciate it all. You guys are all the best. And I hope you like this episode. And feel free to rate, review, subscribe, do all the good things to help keep this podcast running. I appreciate you all so much. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at Sarah, SARA, at elevateyourrunning.com. And I will see you again next week.